Alright, let's do some dividing of integers. So by the end of this lesson, I'll be able to divide combinations of positive and negative integers. So let's get right into it. So there are some different formats for division, and depending on textbooks and computer programs, they can be written a bunch of different ways. So you have this symbol here, a little line with two dots associated with it. This is their division symbol. It allows you to write straight across a line, so it's very popular in textbooks and in things you type. 18 over 2 right here, this is a fraction format. Okay, again, this isn't the easiest way to type, but it's another way of expressing division. And then lastly, this weird symbol here, and this might look more like a square root sign. It's probably closer to something like this. And again, not all computer software and things draw the symbols the same way, so you have to have a bit of an open mind. Those are three ways of expressing division. Okay, so there is some language that I want to go over, and this is really important. And it becomes especially important when we talk about fractions. So case 1, if you look up here, I have 6 divided by 2. Okay, so if I say it the first way, 6 divided into, that means I want to break 6 up into 2 equal groups. So if I want to break 6 up into 2 equal groups, I take my 6 here and I break it up into 2 equal groups, and we can see how many are in each group. And we can see that there are 3 in each group. Okay, that's one way of looking at this problem. Case 2, 6 divided by 2, and this is asking, I want to know how many groups of 2 are in 6. Okay, so that's a slightly different problem. So I'm going to just erase this really quickly. And then I'm going to switch this over, and then I'm going to say, hey, look, let's grab these 2. There's one group of 2. There's a second group of 2. So if we highlight those, there's one group of 2, 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 2. So no matter how I solve this problem, under whether each case, okay, I still end up with the answer of 3. Okay, but it can make a difference later on when we talk about fractions. So let's take a look at this one. 12 divided by 4. So this is asking me if I want to break 12 up into 4 equal groups. Okay, so if I take my chips here and I say there's one group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, and within each group I would find there are 3 chips. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay. Division is also a shortcut for repetitive subtraction, and this method I really like because it doesn't involve drawing a lot of things, and it's things that a user can do very quickly with the skills you have. So if we look at this one here, 4 divided by 12, if division is a shortcut for repetitive subtraction, I'm just going to keep subtracting 4 from 12 and see what happens. So I'm going to subtract 4 from 12. I end up with an 8. And I'm just going to put a little tick over here to keep track of that's one group of 4. If I subtract another 4, now I'm down to 4, that's another one, and then I'm going to subtract one more group of 4, and before I run out of terms, and if you notice, that is 1, 2, 3 groups of 4, or 3, so the answer here would be 3. Okay, so just a reminder, division is a shortcut for repetitive subtraction, just like multiplication was a shortcut for repetitive addition. Okay, so we can use multiplication tables as well to solve the following. So if you have a multiplication table on hand, and I usually give those out in class, it's also located on the website for download, or just Google it. If we have something like 48 divided by 8, if we take our multiplication table and we find 8, okay, now we can go down that 8 column, and when we find a 48, there it is. If we shoot across to the left, we come up with 6, so the answer is 6. Now this is a nice method when the numbers work out perfectly. It can also get you very close to a correct answer, but for example, if this had have been 50 divided by 8, we would never have found 50 in the 8 column, and so we wouldn't be able to find an exact number. we would be able to get close but not precise. So this is a great way to landmark or get close on your numbers. Sometimes it works out really well, but it's more of a guide than a final solution. Okay, so let's try long division or continental division. Continental might be called European. I call it repetitive subtraction because it's just easier. Okay, so if I have 48 divided by 8, so I'm just going to rewrite this. 48 divided by 8. So if I do this with repetitive subtraction, I can subtract 8s. I don't have to just do them one at a time though. I can do groups of them. So I happen to know that 5 groups of 8 is 40. So if I put a little 5 over here, that means I'm using 5 groups of 8. If I subtract that, I have 1 8 left over. I'm going to subtract another group of 8, make a little note, and I end up with 0, which means 48 divided by 8 is 6, which is what we found on the other page. Okay, if we do something like long division, and I'll spend more time on this later, I also have other videos that deal with long division. You try and look at how many 8s fit into a 4. In this case, none. Then you say how many 8s fit into a 48. Okay, and then you would start counting, and if you have really strong multiplication facts, you would come up with 6 groups of 48, and you put up your 6 there. Long division, true long division, you really have to have strong multiplication facts for it to be smooth. I think you'll find repetitive subtraction is really quite easy once you've tried it a couple times. We will keep coming back to long division though, and slowly develop that skill if you don't already have it. Okay, so in dividing positive and negative values, determine the sign of the final answer and then worry about the number answer. So if I'm looking at the first one here, negative 20 divided by 4. So if I count, I have one group or one negative sign. And as our previous lessons, discussions about negative signs and multiplication and division, that's an odd number of negative signs. So I know my answer is negative before I do any work. Now I can just worry about how many groups of 4 fit inside 20. So you could go off to the side, and if you need to, you could do some repetitive subtraction. So I know an 8 is 2 groups of 4, and then maybe I remember, oh, 3 groups of 4 is 12, right? I totally remember that now. That gives me 3 more groups for a total of 5, so the answer here is negative 5. Okay, and if you know your multiplication tables really well, you might just jump straight to the answer. So now 35 divided by negative 7. Again, if I count, there's one negative sign, so I expect my answer to be negative. And if my multiplication facts are good, really with 5s, 35 divided by 7 is just 5. Cool. Okay, so now dividing with a remainder. A remainder means I'm going to have some numbers left over. I'm not going to have a perfect 0 answer at the end. So if we start doing this, 38 divided by 7. So let's do some repetitive subtraction. I happen to know that 5 groups of 7 is 35. That's one of those sort of friendly numbers you spend a bit of time with. So if we subtract that, I have 3 left over. Now see, this is what a remainder is. I don't have enough here to make another full group of 7. So this is called a remainder. Okay, so you normally in these problems you stop once you have a remainder that doesn't fit the full group you're looking for. So in this case, our final answer would be 38 divided by 7 is 5 whole units with a 3 remainder. Okay, and if you wanted to look at that from a fraction standpoint or an alternative format, it would look like this. 5 whole units, and you have 3 out of the necessary 7. Okay, to make up that group. So let's try something a little bigger. You might want to pause this and try it on your own, and then we could do it together. So pause. Alright, so let's set this up. So again, we're going to do some repetitive subtraction. It's a little bit more comfortable, I think. So I'm definitely comfortable that one group of 48 will fit inside 248, or 245. 2 groups for sure, so let's just do 2 groups for now. So that's a 96, and that's 2 groups. So I'm going to do some subtraction. I got to borrow bring over, so I got a 9. Okay, 149 left over, so I can definitely take one more group of 96. But you know what? If I take another group of 48 on top of that 96, then that should be less than 149. I'm kind of comfortable with that, so let's try that for now. So that's 144, and that's 3 groups of 48, and when I subtract those, I have 5 left over, and that is my remainder. So this guy up here would be 5 full groups of 48, and I would have 5 remaining out of the needed 48 that I'm looking for. Okay? All right, so task dividing integers, if you want to give that a whirl. Okay, and I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks.